Folks, we have to talk about MicroStrategy and the possibility of a black swan event that could rival FTX's. Now, MicroStrategy is nowhere near its liquidation point. I mean, its break-even point for buying is only like $75,000, which is still significantly lower where we are right now. But they don't seem to have much of a business strategy or any viable one in terms of actually making profit going forward. And obviously, even though they don't offer dividends on their common stock, they do actually offer dividends on some of their preferred stock. And I'm not really sure where that money is coming from because their business strategy seems to be use the increasing price of Bitcoin to issue more bonds to buy more Bitcoin. Well, what happens if Bitcoin price does not keep increasing? What if we have 2 years where Bitcoin's price decreases? If the price continues as it is right now, we will end this year lower than where we started this year. And that is a new for post-halving years. We've always gone up. But with this administration and the tariffs and the economic turmoil and havoc those policies have actually done, we're going to have something a little bit different this time, or a lot different this time. So we got to look at some of the numbers that we could actually process and see if like MicroStrategy could be a big black swan event that could be forced to liquidate and bring us way down. Now, I think without MicroStrategy, the bottom for the bear market, if we are going into a bear market right now, and there's still debate about that, could be $40,000 to $60,000. But with MicroStrategy, even if they liquidate partially, it could easily bring us down to $20,000, possibly even less, because that is a huge amount of money. Yes, it's only like 5% or less of crypto market cap. Well, it's like only 3% of crypto's market cap. But we all know that market cap in terms of like buy and sell dollars isn't dollar for dollar. It all depends on resistances and support. And if you have such a huge amount of Bitcoin coming out, the ratio could be 1 to 20, 1 to 30, or even more. Like, for every dollar of Bitcoin sold, the market cap of Bitcoin goes down $20 or $30. We've all seen that happen with smaller coins. You don't have to sell all the coins to bring the price close to zero. Even if you sell all of a sudden 10% of the coins in a certain crypto and no one's really buying in mass amounts, you can bring the price pretty close to zero. 3% will not bring the price to zero, but we could lose 60, 70% of the value, possibly even more. And MicroStrategy is a party that can actually cause that. So how does MicroStrategy make money, actually generate income? Well, they do have a software division, and it did actually generate $463 million for 2024. Now, their software company, I do think, is actually shrinking. They do actually have good operational gross profit, but their net profit, they don't really report. Some people said some years it's been 7 or 8 million. Other years it's actually been negative. But regardless, their actual software company is becoming a smaller and smaller part of their real company. And those profits are negligible. Now, like I said, MicroStrategy has a lot of shares out, but the common shares don't actually have any dividends. So you don't have to bleed any money paying dividends, but there is basically there is preferred stocks that do have something of like a 10% dividend. I'm not exactly sure how much, but considering what MicroStrategy's market cap is, even a small percentage dividend will override any kind of profit that their software company has, because MicroStrategy is no longer really a software company. It's obviously just a Bitcoin holding company. And plus you have this declining software revenue. This 2024 software revenue was a 6.6% decrease from the previous year and is evidence of declining trend for software business. So, and this really bothers me, MicroStrategy does not report a net profit for a software division. Instead, the company reported a net loss of $1.17 billion for its total operations in 2024. Now, that's kind of alarming. Why? Because Bitcoin actually went up in 2024 from January to December. Remember, December was during that post-Trump election pump, and Bitcoin, I do believe, was tens of thousands higher than it was in the beginning of 2024. Despite that, MicroStrategy lost money. Now, the thing is, their Bitcoin, appreciation may not actually calculate into that because that's unrealized profits, and they don't really consider that into net profit or loss. It's only realized profits. So their actual money stream is to leverage those unrealized profits into getting people to buy more shares of their MicroStrategy or buy their convertible bonds. And that is not a strategy that can actually last in the long run. Like recently, I think MicroStrategy's market cap has fallen below the actual price, actual amount of Bitcoin they actually hold in terms of dollar value. And at that point, it is very, very difficult to issue any more bonds. Furthermore, this year, some of the investors have gotten pissed off because Michael Saylor diluted stocks that he said he wouldn't actually dilute just in order to buy more Bitcoin, because Saylor is crazy about buying more Bitcoin. That is not a strategy, because you're getting really bad PR from those people who said you wouldn't, you said you wouldn't dilute their stocks, but you actually did. So that is a huge, huge problem in of itself, and that's going to hamper MicroStrategy's operational profit or loss, obviously, because 2025 was not as good as 2024. We'll have to look at the report from next year. The main worrying thing is Saylor is not going to want to sell. His break-even point for Bitcoin buys and sells is about $75,000. But the decrease in MicroStrategy's stock price is very, very concerning, because if his shareholders actually have a lot of voting power, they can vote him out and then they can actually liquidate. Remember, they can liquidate a certain amount before Bitcoin falls on their buy-in rate. So that's one of the other reasons that $75,000 is a kind of value that I'm looking at, because that is about MicroStrategy's DCA. And if other people take over MicroStrategy, aside from Michael Saylor, they won't be so gung-ho and always holding their Bitcoin. I mean, he's kind of insane about that, but other people are not as enthusiastic. They might want to reclaim some of those profits instead of just hold and pray, because if you're a common stockholder, and those are generally the ones with voting privileges, the only strategy that this so-called strategy company has is actually hold Bitcoin and pray that it goes up. And as all of you know, even though for the last 10 years that's been okay, holding something and praying it goes up as a business strategy is generally not a great business strategy. Hate to tell you guys that, but it really isn't. I mean, you got to have some kind of operational strategy to actually make money. Now, Saylor has been talking lately about Bitcoin credit, using some kind of Bitcoin collateral, or their giant pile of Bitcoin to do Bitcoin credit. To that I say, like, why don't you just do lending, man? Like, that's so much easier, and that's like direct capital you can actually get right now. They do need to find some way to actually make profit from all their Bitcoin. And since Bitcoin doesn't have native staking, that option may not actually be there. I think they do need to go on this lending and borrowing thing to make any kind of profit, because you need at least some kind of profit margin. Unrealized profit does not pay business expenses, and eventually your business is going to go under if you don't really have any profits. And as we've said, the software division makes nowhere near enough money to actually fund MicroStrategy's operations. And plus, like, that premium that MicroStrategy has over what their Bitcoin's worth essentially has just disappeared. So investors are going to start to get antsy, and they're not going to like the so-called strategy that MicroStrategy, which is now just named Strategy, actually has. So that actually is a danger to Michael Saylor's position. Once again, I don't really know how the voting structure works. I'm not an investor in MicroStrategy, and I'm not going to be an investor in MicroStrategy, because mainly I would rather just buy Bitcoin and not have to deal with this stuff. Because if MicroStrategy goes down, their share price can actually go to zero if they liquidate. But even if MicroStrategy liquidates, Bitcoin won't go to zero. It'll probably be like 15, 20,000, but that's still much better than a total loss, and that can always have the chance of climbing back up. So you're kind of in a precarious situation with MicroStrategy. I used to see it as an exponential multiplier on which way Bitcoin moves, but at this point, I actually do think holding MicroStrategy, the risk definitely outweighs the rewards, because I don't actually see a strategic or business vision for the company. And sometimes I think, like, for this Bitcoin part, which is the vast majority of his company, he's just making it up as he goes along. I don't really see this whole Bitcoin credit thing as really all that viable, and it's going to take a long time to actually set up. And right now, the company essentially depends on selling more of their convertible bonds or shares to actually keep buying more Bitcoin. And in a bear market, which we could actually be going into right now, that's not a viable method. So I'm not saying that there's a huge danger right now to MicroStrategy folding, but I'm saying that if things go wrong, they could possibly liquidate all the way down to $75,000, which would guarantee us basically a sell-off to $75,000. And if they do, I think other people are going to panic, and that $75,000 is not going to hold. So that could actually be the trigger for something much, much lower. And obviously the market cap of their company is going to go down. And if the investors forced to liquidate more to actually recover whatever losses we can, we could be in for a big ride. And this could actually be bigger than an FTX fallout. So not really that high on MicroStrategy's strategy for their business. I don't think they actually have one. And I think their software division could actually be spun off sometime because it's insignificant. And I want to see Saylor come up with an actual viable strategy with notes and other things and have them actually make profit off of all that Bitcoin so you can actually sustain the business even during a bear market when you're not selling bonds or stocks. So let me know what you think about this. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.